Hey everyone, today I want to talk about Stephen King's Cell and why this book is not very good at all. And after having read all of the Stephen King novels and his short story and novella collections as well, there are a handful of his books that stood out to me simply for being bad. And I will preface this by saying all of these bad books that I'm talking about, I gave them a 2 out of 5. There were still things to pull out of them that I thought were worthwhile. And with Cell, my biggest issue with this one is the fact that, and with Cell, my biggest issue is the fact that there's just absolutely no sense of hope at all. And look, not every King book has that, Carrie doesn't necessarily have a hopeful or triumphant ending. Same with Pet Sematary, which is one of my favorite Stephen King books of all time. But there are moments of hope in those books for the main characters. And this one just never really felt like it had any of that. And I was getting ready to do this video and I was like, you know what? I also can't even remember the names of the main characters, which is not a good sign for a Stephen King novel because I can definitely tell you all about Carrie White, Louis Creed, Beverly Marsh, Bill Denborough, Roland Deschain, and a ton of other main characters in a lot of his novels. And with this one, I was just drawing a blank. I was like, okay, there's the guy who's like the graphic artist, and then you have this other guy he meets up with, and they take this girl and they go on this journey, and he tries to find his son later. And that's about all I got. I was like, I don't really know what else there is to say about Cell beyond that. And there's a shoe that represents some trauma. That much I can remember, but anything else really, details about the book, details about the characters, not a whole lot there. And for Stephen King, who is so good at character work, it was a shock to me because I was like, I don't really care about these characters. And at the same time, I'm also not really interested in learning more about them because we don't get a ton due to the situation they are in. And I do remember the fact, though, that you have people going wild because of cell phones, and, that's sort of the main premise there. But otherwise, it's a very forgettable book for me. I know a lot of people don't like this book, and I also watched the movie. Also did not enjoy that for many of the same reasons, because it looked dire too, and having that added visual and having it feel that way and look that way, you're just like, this is way too much. So Cell is definitely a disappointing one for me. And, I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying this video, hit the like button, share it, hit the subscribe button, and get notified when I have new videos. I definitely plan on talking more Stephen King here, as well as comics and everything else that I've already been discussing on the channel. But to dive a little deeper into why this was so disappointing, Stephen King is a writer who I've obviously grown to love, having read everything of his and hosting a podcast all about his works. So when you finish something like The Dark Tower and then read this shortly after, because I was going in chronological order, it was just so baffling that this is something that came from the same person who wrote the sprawling Dark Tower series and wrote tons of books with characters that I really could fall in love with. I absolutely adore the Losers Club, and I think they are just handled so well and are so interesting. And the fact that you have kids who King, I think, is usually good at writing in this book that just don't really amount too much as far as their character development and the character work goes. It was just something that I was like, are we sure he wrote this one? Are we sure? And I think that is one of the biggest downsides to this book. And it makes it so hard for me to recommend it too, because you can see it here. It's not super thick in comparison to some of his other books. And it's still one I can't really recommend. And usually I'm all for recommending shorter King reads, like, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, for instance. I think you'd be better off reading that one instead of this one. And so many of his other books, pretty much all of his other books, in my opinion, with a few exceptions. But before I go, I will give Sell a little bit of credit because I do like the premise. I think the way King handled it, though, was something that could have been handled in a little more of an interesting way. This resembles some of The Long Walk a little bit, just because you have people who are constantly on the move and trying to stay alive and things like that. And I think The Long Walk was handled a little better than this was. And, that's not to say I absolutely loved The Long Walk. I'm not saying that either, but there are ways to handle a journey like this that I think would have benefited the characters more than King did with Sell. So that's it for my little rant on Sell today. But if you do check out the book, or if you have already read it, again, let me know what you think in the comments. That is all I have for you today, though. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.